emotional intelligence allows you to understand everyone is on a path to, wherever they want to go to. And it's a path of challenge because it's a good thing, right? You want a path of challenge. It's part of your own growth and your contribution. And emotional intelligence allows you to lead with empathy too. I think it's probably one of the most important things. And so for me to be able to communicate to all these different people, different genders, different economic diversities, different generational generations, I just thought, okay, I need to have emotional intelligence. I need to be empathetic. And that's when I realized I lead best as well. So it's something that I've deliberately tried to work on.
Welcome to the EQ for Entrepreneurs podcast. Like most business owners, you already know you need good business and marketing strategies to scale and be profitable. But at some point, you've hit the dreaded wall where you feel stuck and frustrated. EQ for Entrepreneurs is for business owners and leaders who are honest enough to admit that they just might be the ones holding their business back and are brave enough to change that.
We're Noble and Kathy, and every week we're having candid conversations about all things emotional intelligence and how growing that has allowed us to get out of our own way and is radically transforming both our businesses and our personal lives. This is the secret sauce strategy for modern entrepreneurs who are tired of hustling without seeing results and want to grow a business and a life that they love.
Entrepreneurs, leaders, and influencers. I am super excited about this episode. This is a clip from an interview with a great friend of mine, COL Rose Keravouri. She graduated from West Point and has been a successful entrepreneur for a number of years. She's got an amazing story, and she shares some wonderful insights on how her very intentional emotional intelligence growth journey has impacted every area of her life. You guys are going to love this.
Okay, so now, and I want to introduce one other concept here, one other thought here. Emotional intelligence.
Oh, yeah.
Important, not important. How has it impacted your life, your journey, your business, your leadership?
Yeah, most important. Most important. I mean, I think it's even more important than regular intelligence. People really value SAT scores or if you're top of your class. And it's been shown that actually, if you have emotional intelligence, it's even more important than regular intelligence, right? And I think it's even more necessary now in our day and age when we're missing things like kindness to other people. So I really cultivated that, honestly. And I think partly because my primary question before I changed it was always, how do I fit in? And so how do I best fit in? And that meant I was always looking around, evaluating, reading faces, reading body language, trying to, fit in seamlessly so I'd never bring attention to myself. So the positive that brought me was being able to, read people, understand, empathize, understand different viewpoints. And clearly, I've changed my primary question, as I told you, but I think emotional intelligence is the biggest part of leadership that people don't talk about, at least in the military. And partly, as we say, we're so diverse as an American society. When you look at our military, it needs to be a composition of what America is. And so we're seeing that, in our enlisted ranks. I would say you see less of it in the officer ranks. But, my limiting belief before was, I'm just going to do what's interesting and have fun in the military because I'm never going to be a military senior leader because I'm not the military ideal. The military ideal is, I mentioned them before, Patton, MacArthur, Eisenhower, old, white, super storied, and run fast and all this. I'm like, that's not me, right? I played tennis in high school because I couldn't play basketball, right? And so, this limiting belief is like, well, actually, no, I too could be a military ideal, And now we see a lot more like female Hispanics that are generals that, you say, okay, yeah, someone looks like me up there. But I think emotional intelligence allows you to understand everyone is on a path to, wherever they want to go to. And it's a path of challenge because it's a good thing, right? You want a path of challenge. It's part of your own growth and your contribution. And emotional intelligence allows you to lead with empathy too. I think it's probably one of the most important things. And I'm trying to be very deliberate about that, especially in the military, is leading, because in an MI brigade, you've got soldiers that have several master's degrees, several languages, you have, and people who have been trained in human intelligence, right? How to get information out of you. They've been trained very specifically for very specific things. And for me, it's about, okay, generationally, we had someone in our formation in our last annual training, our field exercise, who was born on not September 11th, but around September 11th. I think he was born just a couple months before. And to me, that's shocking, right? I was already in the Army when that happened. I was like, oh my God, he's known nothing but Iraq and Afghanistan and what the news has said, right? And so for me to be able to communicate to all these different people, different genders, different economic diversities, different generational generations, I just thought, okay, I need to have emotional intelligence. I need to be empathetic. And that's when I realized I lead best as well. So it's something that I've deliberately tried to work on.
What are some tips on growing one's emotional intelligence?
So I think there is a book called Emotional Intelligence. Well, one is, so it's hard, especially because we're stepping out of one's comfort zone, right? One is to be curious, just to ask questions of oneself. Okay. Like when my daughter does something and automatically I get so angry and I started thinking, okay, why? What is this triggering in me, right? It's to ask yourself that, why does when this person do this, or for example, when that person believes that in American politics, why does that? I don't personally think putting a border wall is a good use of taxpayers' money, for example. And I think we're a nation of immigrants and we've done well for that. So I'm questioning that, right? Of my own commander-in-chief, right? And so I have to sit back and go, okay, why? Why does this bother me? What are my thoughts on this? Why do I feel this way? And it's really just asking yourself first those questions and then asking that of someone else. Okay, well, why did she react that way? Why did he react that way? What is it that I don't know? Maybe there's something going on in that person's life, in that person's trajectory. Maybe they're undergoing certain challenges right now that they're coming at it from a very different angle, right? And so I've always learned, so if there's one takeaway from today, it's ask better questions. And so I honestly think we are really a summation of the questions we ask ourselves, and if you're going to ask crappy questions, excuse my French, you're going to get crappy answers, right? And that's one of the main things I've learned is you say, well, gosh, why am I so bad at that? Or why is this so hard for me? Well, it's going to be hard for you. And you're going to be bad at that, right? Your mind's going to automatically answer the questions that you ask. So I would say be deliberate about asking the best questions you can. And that's one reason why the first thing the Tony Robbins coach does is find out what your primary question is, rewrite that primary question, and put it in your calendar to keep asking a new primary question that's just empowering, not disempowering. And then after that, formulating a whole new set of questions that are empowering. So something bad happens. Instead of, well, why did this happen to me, right? Terrible question. Good question. What good could come from this? And so I've tried to teach my daughters this too. What good could come from this? Well, what could I learn about this? What is this person dealing with that I may not know? How may that person be feeling? And so empathetic leadership, emotional intelligence, I really think really starts with the questions you ask yourself and just being curious about, again, being a little bit vulnerable, being ready to be sort of uncomfortable and asking yourself those uncomfortable questions.
Okay, so this is another topic that is, so one of my, you're familiar with the concept of love languages. One of my love languages is acts of Mexican culinary service. Okay.
I don't think that was in the book, Noble.
That's in Noble's edition. So that's one of my love languages, right? Is Mexican food, right? Another one of my love languages that is almost as as up on the list is questions. I love questions, and I learned it from my parents. But what's been interesting is, so Kathy, my awesome wife, because we have gone back and forth with this. She is growth minded as well, and that's the kind of people that I attract are growth minded people. If you're not growth minded, you're not my people. And not that I don't love you, I'll still love you, whatever. But so anyway. But what's been interesting is, for me, man, I could literally interview you for 24 hours straight and not and come up with new questions But with Kathy, what's been interesting, she's like, dude, how do you come up with the questions? How do you come up with the questions? She's like, I'm like, well, what have you asked questions about? Like what? Because she's like, dude, I don't ever ask anyone any questions ever, And I'm like, well, why? Why is that? And she's like, well, I said, so what have you asked questions about? And she said, well, I guess I only ask questions about stuff that I'm really interested in. And if I'm not interested in it, I don't even think to ask questions. And me, it's the opposite. I'm always thinking of questions, and it's trying to prioritize which ones and when and who. And so, and I think you and I are very similar in that we are naturally curious.
Yeah.
You feel like it is possible to develop the ability to ask questions.
I agree. And what they say is, people like to hear themselves talk, right? And so one is, if you're curious genuinely about somebody, they're going to want to talk about what interests them. And so part of it is that, finding out what interests them. And I feel I am similar to you, Noble, in that I love when as soon as I meet someone, it's like trying to get to the essence of that person. Like, well, why? Why did you do that? And what does that mean for you? Right. And so sometimes it's probably like at a cocktail party, it's probably bordering more than they could take. And they're like, whoa, I barely know you. But I'm always like, well, what made you make that decision? And how did that make you feel? And what does that mean? And so you're right. But what I've learned is, sometimes it's just as important to listen, right? And to let someone talk and just say, okay. And to keep asking that question, to delve a little bit deeper, keep peeling that onion layers. But they're going to want to talk about what's interesting to them and letting them, talk about what's interesting to them. So I agree with you. Questions are so important.
And this is a big topic, man, that I want to explore more in the future. Is it seems like it's easier for me to ask questions of you than it is for me to ask questions of me.
Yeah.
For a couple reasons. One, sometimes I don't want to know the answer.
Right.
Like, because
exactly.
One of my superpowers that I have developed over my lifetime, and I could write an Encyclopedia Britannica series on the concept of avoidance, right? how to avoid the elephant in the room, right? I am a master at avoiding the junk in my trunk and all this other stuff, right? And until it's unavoidable. So, and I'm working on that. That's one of my EQ growth things. But that's one reason why I feel like some people are not good at asking themselves questions is they don't want to know the answer.
Exactly.
Number one. Number two is what I found, because I'm new in this whole emotional intelligence journey. I'm 2 years in a very intentional, like that's, I want to say that's all I've been thinking about, but for 2 years, that has been my driving theme and interest is emotional intelligence, because I literally did not know that it even existed. So the second reason why I feel like a lot of people are not necessarily good or natural at asking themselves questions, or at least for me, is I don't speak. Prior to 2 years ago, I've never spoken emotional intelligence language. I've never, so I don't even know, and this is going to sound crazy, but using the Latin term trivium, which I learned in my homeschooling days, not me being homeschooled, but our daughter, is the trivium stands for 3 ways. It sort of means in Latin, grammar, dialectic, and rhetoric. I didn't even know the grammar of emotional intelligence. Like literally, no kidding, 2 years ago, my wife asked me, I got emotional. Out of nowhere, boom, I got waterworks going. Like cool waterworks, though, not like, you know what I'm saying, it's cool, right? Anyways,
of course.
The tears are going, right? And so I'm like, man, what is going on? And Kathy's like, so, hey, Noble, what are you feeling, right? And I said, I have no idea. She's like, no, seriously, like, what are you feeling? I'm like, I honestly have no idea. And she said, okay, let's start with this one, right? Let's start at 10,000 feet, EQ 101, like kindergarten level. Are you happy or are you sad? Right? Right? And I literally couldn't even answer the question. I didn't even know. I don't know. And so I feel like that's the second reason is, in a book called Emotional Intelligence 2.0, it talks 68% of people have difficulty defining how they feel.
Yes.
And so if you don't know, the emotional intelligence grammar, it's going to be tough to ask yourself some of those questions that are necessary and important to help develop your emotional intelligence.
Yes.
Right. And then the third thing is, as a result of not being super familiar, because listen, at least in my experience, the language of emotional intelligence is not common in America, in my opinion.
I think it's becoming more common, but I agree with you.
I totally agree. It is becoming more common. So the third thing I would say is, because it's not super common yet, and folks are not super aware of the emotional intelligence grammar, the ABCs of emotional intelligence, it's tough.
Yes.
And just the fact that learning a new language is learning French, man, oh my goodness, are you kidding me, right? Like, that's tough. And do I really want to invest the time in learning the language that I have to learn in order to ask myself these tough questions, right?
Yes.
And it's like, well, you know what? I've lived most of my life without any knowledge of emotional intelligence, so who cares, right?
Yeah.
I can get the rest of my life without it, right? So anyway.
Yeah, but you're totally shortchanging the human experience is about emotions, right? It's about not just the good, but the bad as well. That's how you grow and contribute.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to cut you off. I'm sorry, but I have so much to say on this topic.
I can't wait. So one other thing is, one other thing that I want to say, just as a new to this world of emotional intelligence, what it has done for me is it has brought life from 2D to 3D, or from 3D to 4D, right? So, and it's crazy coming from my perspective, as I popped out of the womb as a people guy, right? I popped out of the womb working the room.
See that.
You know what I mean? What's up, doc? Nurses, right? All this kind of thing. And for me, I'm in one sense, I'm really upset that I've missed out on so much of life and people because I have not been aware of this other world. But on the other side, I'm very thankful and excited that I get to explore aspects of people that I've never even been aware of.
Yeah, gosh, that's just so good. I mean, it also shows just the fact that your journey includes self-growth, which includes this part, which makes people feel uncomfortable. I think that's why. So I have a couple of theories. One is that we are a nation of doers, right? And that is what is celebrated in society, especially because we both come from military background. It's absolutely celebrated in the military. You do, you don't feel, right? Feeling may mean you start becoming empathetic to why the Taliban's the Taliban. Why did they get there, right? And so you don't, your enemy doesn't look like humanity. Otherwise, you have an issue fighting them. And so I think you're right. And partly there's so many things I can even talk about, just the military that we've grown up in West Point and outside. Not only does it suppress emotions, you're not meant to show them, you're not meant to analyze them or ask about them, but it's the same thing with femininity. It suppresses femininity in both men and women, right? And it's a part that everybody needs. You need as much masculine as you do feminine. And so trust me, that's been a whole learning cycle for me, especially as a mother and a wife, right? Is how to leave the work at home, how to leave the military leader at home or at work. And when you come home, it's okay, let me start thinking through, let me be empathetic, let me, be emotionally intelligent and try to empathize with what my kids are feeling, what my husband's feeling or thinking right now. And that, again, the military sort of suppresses that because it doesn't need you to be good at that in order to win wars, right? To do its core mission. So unfortunately, I feel like we haven't really grown up in a time when that was really important, even though it's now being shown through research that it is the most important thing. And again, why do people read novels? Why do we go to movies? It's because it shows the human experience, right? And it's one sometimes of suffering, sometimes of sadness, frustration, anger, injustice, but then also all the good things that happen too. And sometimes, it's not that you need the bad to have the good, but life is both. That's what it is. It's all emotions. And it's interesting now to see how kids these days are learning about these emotions. There's books that I got for my kids that they were doing, before we moved to France and even here, where it's like a unicorn and he goes through all these, every book is a different emotion, sadness, jealousy, loneliness, anger, frustration, happiness, when I'm so happy, but how to deal with that? Like, just so much joy. And it's so funny that it's got this little unicorn that deals with all of these different emotions. And it's one to teach kids how to first express their emotion because it's so important. And then second, ask, well, why am I feeling this? How am I feeling? What's triggered me to feel this way, good and bad, and what to do about it, right? And so it's from the little unicorn that's feeling so much utter joy, that one. And the lesson was, bring joy to others too. Don't just be like, well, I'm just so joyful right now. But like, okay, well, how could I get this person to feel joy in that person? And then same thing with all, sort of what we call negative emotions. But just knowing, okay, yes, you need to be curious. You need to go in that vulnerable space and ask yourself, ooh, this does not feel good. Why am I feeling this way? And sort of going into that and asking yourself, why? And I also think that today, because it's so easy to distract with your phone, to quickly go on Facebook, to quickly go on Instagram, and that suppresses all of that. It's hard to balance both, but it's to say, okay, well, this person has their life together, right? Because it looks like that on Instagram with the filters that they put. It looks amazing. But then to say, okay, am I doing this because I'm trying to escape something? I'm unhappy. I'm not, maybe I'm not in where I'm at right now with my weight or with my family or with my job or, whatever, fill in the blank. And again, it goes back to asking good questions. okay, why am I looking at this right now? Am I trying to escape something? Am I trying to escape feeling something? So I'm with you. I'm on the emotional intelligence journey and trying to label my emotions, trying not to judge them, and trying to understand why I feel them, and trying to teach that to my kids too. I think it just makes you live the human experience like we're meant to experience it. And it makes you a better leader anywhere, military, business, in your community. That's what it is. We're meant to be a community and to commune with others. And that just makes you a better person to commune with.
That's right. I love that. And it's 100%. And that's, that is part of emotional intelligence, is being others aware and how others aware. Another thing too that's been really revealing and helpful and insightful for me, that Kathy really helped me out with, is just realizing that behind every emotion and feeling is a story and a belief. So unpacking that, so it's like an atom, right? So if you pull apart the atom, you got the proton, neutron, electron, right? We're talking way outside of my comfort zone here, but similarly, you unpack an emotion and feeling, and you've got a story, you've got a belief, and what he helped me realize was, which again, this is all like just literally the discovery of the atom for me, because I did not know about any of this stuff, is that she's like, look, and then of course another part of the feeling and emotion is the behavior, right? What's the behavior that you are exhibiting as a result of the feeling and emotion, as a result of the story that you told yourself about this feeling, and realizing that. And again, this is going to sound probably completely ridiculous to you, but for me, this was groundbreaking, is that you can separate the belief and the story from the emotion and feeling. And because before, it was all one and the same, literally all of them, the behavior, the emotion, the feeling, the belief, the story, it was all one thing. And that's all I knew. Like, I'm punching the wall and it's all one, and I can't not punch the wall. I have to punch the wall. Okay, well, let's step back, right? So just the power of being able to separate, analyze, kind of like an out of the body experience of, okay, what's going on here? Man, the power, because, again, here's the thing is, there's so much stuff. So like the limiting beliefs, right? Our limiting beliefs are so, one of the other questions I was going to ask you is what were your stories and what are your current stories, right? Because what percentage of our lives are a result of our stories?
Oh my gosh. Everything
that are operating that we're not even aware of, that I developed when I was 5 years old, and my dad was throwing pots and pans through the kitchen window, right? Yep. The stories that I created, that and so like how much of our, well, even in a positive way, your life from an adventure standpoint, I am going to have adventure, period, right? And that was like became, well, and in a way it is part of your DNA because your parents kind of lived that way as well. So literally it's like your blood type, but how, what percentage of our lives are dictated by our stories and you made another great point earlier on, is that at one point served us well, right? They were a survival mechanism or a coping mechanism that worked great when we were 5 or 8 or 13.
Right. But no longer.
When we're 25 or 35, or you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, there's so much. So it's funny because I didn't even know that I was telling myself stories until I got my Tony Robbins coach, right? Like I said, and that single decision, like I said, other than the decision of who you marry, was probably the second most important decision in my life. And it was really sort of unpacking all this stuff I've been telling myself to go, okay, wow, what story am I telling? So again, empowering for some part of your life, and then no longer useful. And let me just bring up the fact that also we do that a lot with success, right? If I only become this grade rank, fill in the blank, if I'm just a colonel, if I finally become, a master sergeant, then I'm going to be successful. Those little stories that we tell ourselves, you're continually chasing, something that is falsely fabricated by yourself, right? And so I used to tell, again, because of the 4 human needs, significance was my main factor, what I was trying to always to meet. And that's why, like I said, I've been deliberate to shift it to growth and contribution. But I would do that only if, if I get this next job, or if I get this next raise, if I get this next position at BAE, then I could say I've arrived, right? It's like, why? What does that mean? Getting there, it means nothing else than any other arbitrary measure of significance I put on myself. I would say the latest one I've discovered this year, as I'm thinking through, because I get a lot of questions now, as a brigade commander. So, what made you, successful? How did you get selected for this? And part of it's luck and timing. Part of it's being, making your luck and timing in that you were there, you had prepared yourself for when the opportunity presented itself. That opportunity, you were ready for it, right? So I do get those questions, and I try to answer also by saying, the story that I used to say, which was, I'm a daughter of 2 immigrants who, had a very difficult life, and they surmounted that. And my father was the first, in his family to go to college. And that was such a big deal, like I said, he 17 in 1945. He survived, the end of World War II and the Reconstruction. He was in for 6 years. And he spent all that time in Europe, reconstructing France, Germany, Italy, all of that. And so he has these amazing stories, but he used the GI Bill to pay for college. And he had gone to USC back when USC was probably easier to get into and also a lot cheaper. And he used the GI Bill to pay for that. And he worked all night at the Goodyear Tire and Rubber Factory in LA making tires, and so he barely slept for 4 years so he could put himself through college. And so to me, it was this, okay, I have a story where, I'm only meant to achieve this because, my father went from poverty to this, college graduate, and for me, it's like, well, I'm going to go from here to here. And then I would put self-imposed limits on myself. And I thought, why? Why do I just need to do here? Why am I limiting myself? I'm only meant to do this, go to this college and maybe this graduate school and only do this. And then I thought, okay, thank you, belief. Thank you, story. You worked well for me. You've got me to this point. Now I'm going to put you aside and start telling myself a new story, in order to move from here on out, post brigade command, business leader, mother, wife. I need a new story that's going to allow me to be empowered. So, I'm 43. We're living now the longest than we've ever had. Let's say 80, 90, right? I've got just as much time left, barring any accident, that I've lived. And I feel like I want to be useful for the next 40 years of my life, 50 years from my life. I'm like, I know I have more to contribute. What could I do? And I just started thinking, well, I could grow my business. I'm interested. Maybe I'd love to be ambassador one day. Maybe I could do this, and I just started thinking through other possibilities that I never thought were possible given my current story, which was, in the framework of my family and what we've achieved, I meant to go here and that's it. And now, I finally thought through that story and said, okay, time for me to move on from this. And like I said, it really goes back down to everyone is talking to themselves in their heads. You're always asking yourself a question. And so it's, okay, start really paying attention to those questions you're asking yourself and the stories we tell ourselves. Hey, I'm late again for the 5th time this week because whatever, right? well, really, why? Why are you late? Is there something here that you're not thinking through? Do you just really not want this job because it's not you? It's not meeting your needs. It's not creative enough. It's not really what you want. It's, truly not your passion. It's really ask yourself those uncomfortable questions. And really asking ourselves, what story am I telling myself now? Right. And one thing, my brain, I'm sure a lot of people do this too, defaults to the negative. Oh no, I know, I let my daughter, 8-year-old, walk by herself to the supermarket and buy something. Like, well, what if a car gets her? What if someone asks her to get in the car? What if, she gets lost? I mean, none of this is true, right? And it's like, okay, stop with these crazy stories, right? And be deliberate about, okay, what have I taught her? What have I empowered her with? What have I, and ask the good questions. But yes, I believe stories and questions are really, we are meaning making machines. We make meaning out of everything. Anything that happens, like you and I, let's say something happened to us right now, we're having coffee and something happened outside, we would take 2 different meanings from that, And so that's the thing. It's, you control the meaning you make out of everything that happens to you, whether it's good or bad. And I think it's important that you tell yourself a meaning that's going to be powerful and empowering rather than disempowering.
That's right. And accurate. How many of my stories are accurate?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And again, I've never studied this aspect of emotional intelligence, but what percentage of our stories come from our childhood? Well, I guess all of them would, right? All of them would come from our.
Yeah.
I would think that all of our stories. Well, I'm sure we acquire them as we go, I guess.
We do. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
High school, I probably created some new stories. West Point, I created some new stories. Right. So I guess we're always. Maybe we're always writing.
We're continually.
Right?
Yeah. And I think they're always on the bait because we don't question this, right? We don't question what we've been telling ourselves for years. So now it's about, okay, let's start thinking, when did I start telling myself that? Was it something I did to cope as a teenager, right? Why did I tell myself that? So I think it's that. I think it's I think we continually make up stories, but it's being deliberate about understanding, okay, yeah, I remember I made that up in freshman year of college because it got me through this difficult time. Or, you know what I'm saying? Or when I got married, I started saying this. Or when I took on this job, I started viewing myself as that. And that, you could use it also to empower yourself. Like if you're a new business owner, you don't know much about business, and say, okay, visualize yourself in that. It's partly visualization and storytelling, really. Like, okay, I am worthy to be here. I have a great idea. And a vision for me of a CEO is that, and sort of acting that way empowers you to be that person, to be that CEO. Like I said, those are empowering stories because you have agency over them. You've deliberately crafted them to help you. But also as important is to know when you're no longer to use it. Yes.
And man, what, this is so muddy. What percentage of our stories did we auto write versus did we intentionally write? And I know just for me, man, I don't, and this is again probably a reflection of where I'm at on my emotional growth journey, which is still probably in the kindergarten phase, is what percentage of my stories did I intentionally write versus unintentionally? And I'll be honest with you, man, just thinking about it off the top of my head, I honestly can't think of a story that I intentionally wrote, which is super terrifying. And I'm sure I'm sure some of them are positive, but I'm sure I know a truckload of those stories have not been positive. And I have not taken the time yet to go back and do my list of, okay, what are my stories? What are positive stories? What are negative stories? And then also thinking of another thought is, I think the other thing that's critical in the concept of these stories is what's the origin story of my story, right?
Yes,
what is
absolutely.
the origin story, right? Is figuring out.
So So at first, I think it's just amazing that you're already thinking through this, right? In your emotional journey, that you're willing to sit down and start thinking, okay, what stories am I telling myself? Which have been good and bad? If you want to use those terms, right? Empowering, disempowering. I think that's, again, most people don't really want to get into that vulnerable state where they're starting to question what they've told themselves. One of the, like when I would workshop something with my Tony Robbins coach, one thing we would look at is everyone has various personalities, right? Just like an onion, we're all complex beings. We're not just one person, you know? And so it was looking at we would do it in circles, like a Venn diagram, almost like, okay, label your personalities, right? And so I would say professional Rose, huge circle, right? Because I was only concentrating on work at that time. Military, you know, a smaller circle right there. Fun Rose, that was like a teeny tiny little dot, you know, like I wasn't having any fun. I wasn't doing things for fun. I wasn't celebrating achievements. It was always continually having to move forward. And so we physically drew circles of what I thought my different person and named them different personalities and what it was now. Then we would do one of what I wanted it to look like. So like, you know, for those who are moms, those who are wives, those who are, you know, fathers, sons, and also, you know, business, and then community leader or church leader, whatever it was, you know, draw out what you wanted it to look like. And then the circles, big or small, based on how you wanted that to be reflected in your life. And then to look at the difference. And that was a great visualization to say, okay, the stories that I've told myself, I'm here now. And I see I'm very unbalanced where this circle's super huge. It's only supposed to be 8 hours of my working life. But this is where I want to be, and to be deliberate about, you know, visually looking at one-on-one and looking at that, you know, every morning to say, okay, here's where I'm at. Here's where I want to be. And that's one way to sort of look at where am I expending my energy? What do I look like every day right now? And then be deliberate about, is this what I want it to, is this what I want it to look like? Is this what my personalities are, and what has atrophied in time? So I think that's just as important as evaluating the stories that we say.
That's money. That's fascinating. I'll have to chew on that.
I'm just trying to think through some tools too that, you know, we worked on that could be helpful to, you know, to anybody.
Yes, that's exactly right. So speaking of tools, what resources, podcasts, books, tools have been the most impactful to you in your growth journey?
Yes to all. So I'm a huge podcast person, mainly because I download a bunch, and then whether I go out running or I go work out, I listen to them. I probably would lift heavier if I had like heavy metal going on, but I feel like I need to listen to podcasts. And here's the thing about podcasts. You can listen to it at 1.5 speed. So I feel like I get through more that way and I listen in more. So one is to absolutely have that in my toolkit. I listen to a variety of podcasts. I read books all the time. And I get suggestions either from, you know, the podcasts I listen to, or from my mastermind, or from my, you know, my mentors or friends, and I get different ones and I add them, you know, to my to listen list or to my read list. So those are important. You know, one, and the other thing I think that is also pretty important is to put yourself in situations where you're uncomfortable. So by that, I mean, challenging yourself to do things that you never thought you would do, or that you would want to do, or, you know, one, like emotions, asking yourself the questions that makes you feel uncomfortable. Why am I feeling this way? What is the origin story behind this, right? Another could be of something where you felt uncomfortable to even try it. So for example, I would say one of the highlights in my military history is the time I spent at CENTCOM. And that came from, I finished battalion command and I'd call, General Camera, and I said, hey, what do you suggest I do now? I just finished this. I don't know what the next step for me should be. I don't know what my future holds. And said, you can't go wrong. General Joe Votel is going to be the next CENTCOM commander this summer. I suggest you go down there, take a 1-year mobilization and learn something new. I said, okay, let me learn something new. So I started looking, called people down there, called friends of friends of friends. You know how that works. It's the network. And then someone said, hey, there's a position in J5 planning. So I'm not a planner. I'm not a SAMS grad. I'm not a, JAWS grad, all that stuff. And I just thought, I'm totally unqualified to do this. And I was. And I just thought, okay, I remember, sending a note to the colonel who's in charge of that section and said, I'm willing to work hard. I'm willing to learn. And I'm not, what you typically go for, your SAMS grad, JAWS grad, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not a planner. I've never learned how to plan. And he's like, we're going to use you anyway. Perfect. Okay. So I go down there with the family, go down to Tampa. And I was like, Era, I'm totally uncomfortable. This is out of my comfort zone. It wasn't even MI, right? It was just general planning for one of the major plans that we have in the Middle East. And major, I mean, like, we're talking over 100,000 soldiers, like World War II, we're talking massive planning, right? So I have no history in doing that. And I just thought, okay, this is making me absolutely uncomfortable. This is a good thing. And so I go down there and I told my business partners, I'm like, hey, I need to do this at this point in my life. This is a skill I need to have. And they took the business for that time. So I go down there and I just start asking to do stuff. I said, okay, what courses are there in planning? Obviously, I'm not going to take a night course for SAMS people. They don't have that. But I was like, teach me what you learned. And I started going over some of that stuff. I started staying late, just sort of reading the plan, seeing how it all intersected. I started volunteering to do things. For example, they have a quarterly commanders conference at CENTCOM headquarters Forward, which is in Qatar. And we would meet, so the 4-star CENTCOM commander would meet there with all of his 3 stars. So the ARCENT, the 3-star Army general in charge of all Army Central Forces, then the Navy Central Forces Admiral, the Air Force Central Forces, the Marine Corps Central Forces, the SOCCENT Special Forces. So all these 3 stars and this 4-star are all sitting around the table. And they're deliberately talking through, like, this, talk about a mastermind group, right? This was like, I get myself into the room, sit there, and literally just take notes. It went on for 3 days, by the way. So 8 to 10 hour days, and just take deliberate notes just about what were they asking? What questions were they asking? What were they talking about? What were they thinking? Just the stuff. Like, I was curious about it. And I'd read their body language. Well, what did he, when he said that, what did he think? I'm just curious. And then I just said, okay, I want to brief at one of these next time. And so the guys that were working this plan were all, retired colonels who were now, I think they had 50, maybe no, 70 civilians on this plan, all former retired colonels that were trained in SAMS and former brigade commanders and all this. And I just thought, teach me what I need to know. I want to be able to brief whatever we're working on this plan at the next commanders conference, right? So I put myself out there and they're like, oh, young girl, you don't know any of this, right? So I'm like, teach me. So they were very, they didn't care. They'd been working this plan for years. I'm like, sure, we'll teach you what you need to know. So sure enough, I started getting all this knowledge. Then we had the DASD for plans, Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for plans. So like a 2-star equivalent civilian from Pentagon come down. And I was like, and I said, I want to brief this to her. And I just said, make sure all of you guys are in the room though, because I don't know the details of this, and this, right? I don't know the logistics, supply chains like a logistician would. I don't know the Air Force side of the bombings. Yeah, I need the Air Force retired colonel there. I need the artillery guy. You know what I mean? So they were all there. The briefing took 3.5 hours. Like that's how deep and detailed. And this lady was just absolutely brilliant. You know, again, not military, a civilian SCS taking this briefing. And I just remember thinking the level of questions that this person was asking. You know, I didn't know all the answers, but I just said, okay, you know, I introed it, I briefed it. And when they would ask specific questions, I said, ma'am, the right person to answer that is, you know, so-and-so. So I put myself in this super uncomfortable position where I knew I didn't know anything, but it was such a rewarding experience. I just thought, you know what, I leave this 1 year with an amazing understanding of what goes into this intricate plan. And then as fate would have it, I ended up briefing, you know, one of the commanders conferences. And I get a call the next day. And from, I don't know, you may know the name, Bill Osland, a legend colonel. His battalion had the most Medal of Honor recipients in Afghanistan. So he had been working with General Joe Votel for you know, JSOC, SOCOM, CENTCOM, and he was the CAG director at CENTCOM. He said, hey, you know, we want you to interview for a job at the CAG. I'm like, oh my God, like, of course, this is amazing, right? I thank you for considering me. And I don't know if I'm going to make it. You know, I didn't tell him this, but I thought just as, you know, okay, let me try it. And we had conversations, and then ends up that they want me up on the Commander's Action Group. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm so not ready. Like, this is given to, you know, the best of the best at CENTCOM, active duty. Like, and at first thing I said, do you know I'm a reservist? That was like my first question out of my mouth, right? They're like, yeah, we don't care. Like, okay. I'm like, I'm not a planner. I'm not, you know, like, we don't care, right? As long as you keep that op tempo, we're good. The op tempo, again, nothing like I've ever experienced in my life. So we were out of Tampa, and we would fly into the Middle East 2 weeks out of every month. And then we'd go, it was crazy. I mean, and so here's the thing, you could sleep on the plane. He had his own plane. So the CENTCOM commander would go over, we had Sipper on the plane. We would be working on the plane, right? And so I'm like, okay, so when do we sleep, right? Just sort of lay down, sleep for 4 or 5 hours. We'd land in Iraq, and we were off. Like, we land about, 19, 20-hour flight. You hit the ground running with meetings. 1,500, he's meeting with Iraq, you know, the ambassador. Then we got to get all the country team briefing because he's having dinner with the Iraqi prime minister. He's got to be ready for me. I'm like, oh my God, when do we sleep? When do we eat? When do we, you know, anything? And it was like, I think I was downing energy drinks, right? So I'm like, okay, 1,800, we prepared all of his talking points before the event. We would write what happened during the meeting. We'd write up the things for after the meeting. I mean, it was a continuous cycle of just stuff. I'd never been prepared for something like that. And then when Colonel Bill Osland left, because I had just promoted to colonel at the time, I was the acting director. So I went from, you know, just doing a year at CENTCOM on plans that I'd never been trained on, to becoming the Commander's Action Group director temporarily for a couple months for the CENTCOM commander, right? So I was like, okay, this is amazing. I'm so uncomfortable right now that I don't know what I'm going to do, right? So it was that uncomfortableness. And it was okay, he's got these events coming up. We need a speech for these 3 things. Are you ready for that? Like, he's meeting with these people in Iraq. You're right. You give me that. He's meeting with these people in Oman, these people in Afghanistan, and we would have it by the 30-minute increments. Everything was prepared. And he's just an amazing leader. So it was amazing to see that in person, to be in the room when he was talking to the Sultan of Oman, the King of Jordan, the Prime Minister of Iraq, you know, all these great leaders that, you know, we're thought to think of as great leaders. And I just thought, there is something I could learn from this. You know, and put yourself in, first of all, if you're feeling uncomfortable about the next step and you're not ready, good. Take it. That's perfect. You're supposed to feel that way. Then it was, when you're in that position, ask good questions. You know, ask, okay, what else could I learn from this? What can I learn from this meeting? And a lot of it obviously is just, you know, interstate relations that matter to our country and United States standing in the Middle East and greater war, in Syria and against ISIS. And there's all that. But then there's all of the sort of the meta meaning, which is, okay, how does this Sultan of Oman interact with this general? How does this general who's not been trained to be a foreign diplomat, how is he so good at this, right? How does he carry so much weight? And it was sort of those questions I was asking myself and learning just from having put myself initially in such an uncomfortable situation that I wanted just to learn and do something I didn't know, to finding myself in this position, and just taking away as much as I could from it. I remember and then at the end, the last sort of 4 to 5 months, I had been selected for Brigade Command, and I'd spent 4 to 5 months, before I transitioned to Brigade Command. I just remember everything I did, I started looking at it from a lens of, what could I take away from this for Brigade Command? What could I take away from this meeting for Brigade Command? So I just sort of kept asking myself those questions. And then what can I take away from this as a business person? So I started asking myself that too, knowing that, I would make the transition back. And so it's sort of those, you're going to find yourself in situations like, oh, should I go for it? My feeling is, what do you have to lose, right? If you feel uncomfortable, it's scary, that's a good thing. Put yourself in that situation. Take advantage of those opportunities. And then when you're in it, it's, what questions are you asking? It should be good ones. It should be empowering ones that make you think through deliberately, you as a person, as a father, as a mother, as a leader of your organization, whether it's business or military, or as a leader in your community. And so I journaled so much during that time, just from all the takeaways of being, in some of these meetings, that I look back on some of that today. I'll sort of, check back on my black book and see what I wrote about this meeting and think, yeah, I remember this. And my takeaway, was this for my business, or was this for my military organization, my brigade. So that's, sort of one of the takeaways. You have stories, questions you ask yourself, and then just the challenge of putting yourself in a place that makes you feel uncomfortable to challenge yourself.
Absolutely love that. Just, that's a whole, that experience alone from just as you shared there, there's that of the amount of lessons that you can pull out of the time that you deliberately and intentionally put yourself out of your zone.
And let me I don't want to underemphasize all the mistakes I made, right? I don't want to paint like I was just miraculously so good. Look what happened, right? I made mistakes left and right. I'm just telling you. And so I was called out on them too, right? And so I made a ton of mistakes. And so the key was, though, to be like, okay, acknowledge. Yep, I made a mistake. I briefed this whole thing wrong. Got it. I'm going to correct it for next time, right? Put me in the ring again, right? Or same even for the commander. You can't mess up at that level, but I made some mistakes anyway. And, but you know what? I put myself out there, and it was just like, okay, I got it. That was a mistake. I'm gonna, continue moving forward. And the story I'm gonna tell myself isn't one of failure. The story I'm gonna tell myself is, I'm the one who put myself in the ring, and I boxed. I got my ass whipped. Doesn't matter. I'm still standing. I'm gonna keep going for the next round. And now I'm going to focus on the next round, not just what happened. So that's definitely important to remember. Like I've made a lot of mistakes. And I think people shy away from that. Like, ooh, I don't want to fail. Actually, that's where you learn more is through failure.
Well, 100%. And so one of the things is, one of my philosophies, entrepreneurs view failure differently than everyone else does. Because as an entrepreneur in our house, we celebrate failure. Since our kid was probably 3 or 4, I ask her almost daily, how did you fail today? And if she doesn't have an answer, then we have to go fail at something, right? Because I want.
That is such a good question.
Right, because our American education system, an F is a bad thing. Oh, you're grounded. Oh, you can't do this or that. No, in an entrepreneur world, we celebrate it, right? We celebrate failure in our house. And so for that reason, who learned more the observers in your life that were watching you fall on your face, or you did.
Right.
Sure.
Right.
Can they learn something from watching people that fall? Absolutely. But nobody learned more than the person that is going through those experiences. There's nothing like doing it yourself. And again, you reframed it for me, failure is a necessary part of the learning process. And another thing that we call it in our house is professor failure, right? What did we learn from professor failure today, right? So it's reframing it as a positive, not as a negative, right? It's something to be celebrated and learned from. Anyway.
Absolutely.
Another neat thing is you reframed. It seems like you've reframed getting out of your comfort zone, which again, by definition, people don't like to do it because it's out of your comfort zone. But in my opinion, again, cheesy quote, but no growth happens in your comfort zone. You can't grow your muscles without breaking them down. There's that tension that has to occur in order for growth to happen in your life. But it's like, again, avoidance guy, that's going to be painful. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be embarrassing or whatever. However, again, how do you define embarrassing? How do you define there's so many things that go with your definitions, but it's getting out of your comfort zone. Like failure is a necessary part of the learning process and learning journey. And
so true. So
I just
true.
love hearing how you have either consciously or subconsciously defined. It's like you. If there's another thing too, one of my buddies, he was in CAG at the unit, and it's so funny the way he wasn't even aware of it, but he would run towards personal conflict, right? So any time there was conflict, he sought it out. Even if it was his own conflict, it didn't matter. If he saw two people fighting, he would go get in the middle of it. What are you guys fighting about? I want to fight. You know what I mean? Or, he would just, anywhere there was conflict, he would seek it out. And it was so jarring to the people pleaser addict, right?
Oh, my goodness.
Who avoided
Oh my goodness, yeah.
The C word at all costs, right? Conflict.
You didn't want to name it.
That's right. I would run from it. And so, just these, and just for you, that you run towards, again, adventure. You run towards growth and contribution. You run towards getting out of your comfort zone. You run towards failure. It's so neat. Just refreshing how you
run, sometimes unwillingly. Okay. so part of, it's uncomfortable, right? Failure. What if I fail? What if I look like an idiot in front of everyone? Okay, sure. And so you're right. And part of it's like, okay, do I really want to do this? Okay, why? And I always ask that basic question. Is there growth here? And am I going to contribute to the organization, to society, to, whatever it is? And so that's where I frame it. So you're right. I think you have to frame it that way.
Well, and again, I go to this too is, but what is failure though?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What is it?
Exactly.
How do you, right? Because I guarantee you, if you put,
it's getting to yes faster. That's what it means.
See, I love that. That's great. I love that. Yeah. Right. So if you ask 10 people, how do you define failure? I bet you'd come up with, some pretty different answers there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think how we define failure is very, very important because so many people, based on the definition, allow themselves to create limiting beliefs to avoid failure. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yes.
So Rose,
I agree.
I've already taken a truckload of your time, and I'm so, so thankful that you have invested so much into, me personally and the folks who are going to be watching this. I'm just so thankful for your time, your wisdom, absolute game changer. And I'm looking forward to continuing these conversations, for sure.
I agree. I agree. And same. I want to interview you. Same way. And we're so like-minded in that, we ask, well, why? Why is it this way? And, how can I learn more? And I agree with you. It's just, that's so good.
Thank you so much for your time and your
Same
wisdom.
here.
Appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Noble. I appreciate it.